So my dad refuses to move out of the family home. Even though my brothers and I haven't lived there in a long time, and he and mum just don't need the space, and the heating bills are ridiculous for two people, he won't move. Because for him, it's just not really about that stuff. The family home is where my family migrated to for a better life. It's where my brothers and I grew up, and it's where we still gather every Sunday for dinner. For Dad, it's more than a roof overhead, it's his home. And for him, you just can't put a price on home. So a quick show of hands, who here knows, when I say home, who here knows that kind of home that I'm talking about? Who's that experienced that? Yeah, great. So everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say you walk through the front door of your home and you just feel safe. You're free to unwind, to laugh, to cry. It's where you can be yourself. And I'm really happy that people here have that home, because everyone deserves a home. But unfortunately, not everyone has one. With the worsening rental crisis, the prospect of a home is slipping further and further away from renters. And I see this in my work all the time. Renters who live with a bathroom covered in black mold, and their landlord, their agent won't fix it. And every time they're brushing their teeth, they're wondering, how many days is this taking off my life, or off my kids' lives? Renters have to choose between eating dinner and keeping a roof overhead because they got a 50% rent increase, they can't afford it, but there's just nowhere else that they can go. Renters who have to tell their kids, sorry, but you have to change schools, because when mum threatened the agent to go to VCAT because they weren't fixing the place, we got evicted and there was nowhere else in the area. These aren't isolated stories. This is a reflection of a broken system. Somewhere along the way, Australia forgot what a home truly meant, and it is costing renters their health, their stability, and their dignity. And everyone here has seen examples of this. This is people waiting over 10 years on the social housing wait list, barely any extra government spending on social housing. This is renters earning a minimum wage in a wealthy country like Australia and can still afford to live in less than 1% of private rentals. This is 1 million renters right now living in homes so unsafe that it's harming their health, but when there are calls for safer homes, you hear, well, that's going to increase property investment costs. That's going to decrease supply. We're missing the point here. We wouldn't accept 1 million people getting sick from unsafe drinking water. Why would we accept unsafe homes? We're thinking about housing all wrong, and we're sending the wrong message, that housing is a commodity and it only needs to be provided as the market allows. And the consequences are devastating. You've got renters transitioning into homelessness faster than people can transition out. Massive additional strain on an overloaded social housing system, making everything so much worse. You've got fractured communities, especially the ones that are already marginalised. We have to do something about this, and this is not renting versus home ownership. It's about being a nation that truly believes that everyone deserves a home. We need to change the story and shift that narrative to housing is an essential service, and the system needs to reflect the simple truth that everyone deserves a home. Now, that is exactly what A Place to Call Home is going to tackle in 3 parts. And firstly, we're going to speak to renters directly and understand what a home means to them and their community. We'll speak to First Nations people, people living with disability, people living in climate change affected areas to understand what home means. And then secondly, with that collective vision, we can build a coalition and amplify the voices of renters to shift that narrative to housing is an essential service. And finally, we'll run a campaign to shape the understanding of groups who have influence in the public conversation. So that's journalists, that's volunteers. And through them, we can send the clear message that everyone deserves a home. This coalition, Anika Legal, Consumer Policy Research Centre, and Better Renting. And Anika is a legal service just for renters. We have assisted over 1,000 renters to maintain safe housing, so we know exactly the kinds of problems that renters face and how they can be empowered to overcome them. Consumer Policy Research Centre, a think tank specialising in fair and inclusive markets. And so they'll make sure that this envisioned rental system makes sense for renters, but also makes economic sense within the broader housing system. And finally, Better Renting, a community of renters who are on the ground already campaigning for rental reform and have had some great wins already in safer homes and more energy efficient homes. This coalition is up for the challenge, and it will be a massive challenge. Everyone here knows the scale of the housing crisis and just how grim it is. But it is also a fantastic opportunity for long-term, meaningful change in housing. And the change is starting to happen. We've got constant media coverage of the issue, stronger rental protections being passed. Just last month, VCAT said no to a renter being evicted when the landlord wanted their relative to move in. The tribunal said no because they saw the impact it would have on the renter was so much worse than the impact it would have on the landlord and the relative. They saw that an investment is different from a home and needs to be treated that way. The change is happening, and what we do right now will affect the trajectory of housing in the decades to come. So, look, I can't tell you what a home means to every renter. That's really what this project is for, but I'll tell you what it means to me. Because Christmas last year, my partner and I brought home our first baby from the hospital. And it was a magical day. It was also 40 degrees. We came home, we found that the air conditioner had broken. And so I called my agent immediately, no response. And for the next few hours, I waited and I wondered whether I was going to be able to keep my newborn baby safe. I felt powerless. I felt inadequate as a new parent. Now, we got the AC fixed that day, and so I was really lucky, but many people aren't. And I learned that for me, a home means dignity. It means always being able to keep your family safe and healthy without having to rely on your agent's responsiveness or their ethics. And it means always feeling deserving of a safe home. So, what does a home mean to you? I really want everyone to reflect on that and reflect on what it would mean if it were taken away. And when you're thinking about contributing to an Australia where everyone has a home, I really want you to think about what that's worth. Thank you.